All right, a little live, raw, and unfiltered police chase here on News Now from Fox, giving you a little bit of a break from the chaos on Capitol Hill coverage, but we are joined right now by Fox News correspondent Doug Lazater as we continue to follow the unrest that happened in D.C., a really extraordinary 24 hours in our nation's capital. So Doug Lazater, thank you so much for joining us. I know you join us from Washington, D.C. Do you live close to the Capitol? Did you hear or see any of this unrest?
Yeah, we're not too far away from the Capitol. We're about, 14 or 15 blocks away. We certainly heard a lot of police activity, a lot of sirens, helicopters, you name it. This was all concentrated, though, right along the Capitol. I mean, the protest itself began closer to the White House, but then those protesters moved their way down the National Mall to the Capitol, and the violence really seemed to be, contained to that area. It's not like it spilled out into neighborhoods, as we saw with some of the protests last year. So it was very concentrated, but very intense. And it was just something we have never really seen before, to see this many people just kind of break in to the U.S. Capitol with Congress in session.
Yeah, and Doug, Congress really, we've spoken to several congressmen that were there yesterday on the floor fearing for their lives. Nancy Pelosi's office vandalized, but they still managed to get back on the floor to certify Biden's Biden becoming president of the United States in the next couple of weeks. So how do you think that this yesterday will affect Biden's inauguration?
Well, the inauguration is in less than 2 weeks, and it really is the final step. Once Congress certifies the election, as we saw yesterday, then there's really no doubt that there's always a question about when you call someone a president-elect, and you can have that debate. But that debate is pretty much over. I mean, especially after Congress certified the election yesterday, the next step is the swearing in. This was going to be a scaled-back affair to begin with, at the behest of Joe Biden and others. Because of the coronavirus, it was going to be pretty limited. This is an event that generally just takes over this city. That's not going to be the case this time around. However, it does seem as though security concerns would be doubled and maybe then some, based on what happened yesterday. Now, there are no indications that we know of right now about big protests planned for Inauguration Day, but I think, again, based on what happened yesterday, they can't rule anything out. So I think it's safe to assume that they're looking very closely at security plans for the inauguration. And, there are so many police agencies that are involved in the planning for an event like that. It's a matter of finding some common ground and some common cause and figuring out exactly how to provide security for an event of that scale.
Now, Doug, what can you say about the fact that several members who intended to object actually changed their mind following this violence?
That may be the irony here, that for all the violence yesterday, the process of certification in Congress was a little bit easier than we expected. A lot of the anticipated objections that we thought would come from Republicans were withdrawn at the last minute because of the violence. So the process was a little easier once they really, began again after the violence subsided. So they did wrap it up shortly before 4 a.m. And then after that was decided, and this was all overseen, by the way, by Vice President Mike Pence in his ceremonial role as President of the Senate. He presided over the entire joint session of Congress yesterday. Once that was finished, we did see this statement come out from President Trump indicating that he will abide and is committing himself to a peaceful transfer of power. Now, we didn't hear from him was any kind of concession. I mean, he is still questioning these election results, but he doesn't seem to be questioning the end game here, and that is that Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as the next president in less than 2 weeks.
And, Vice President Mike Pence, like you just said, actually condemned his own supporters, saying you did not win. What can you say about Mike Pence's response to the unrest?
Well, look, I think the condemnations were pretty much across the board yesterday of the violence. So, Mike Pence certainly came